Hello everyone, my name is Dara Rath and I'm the pastor at Faith Lutheran Church in Port Elgin, Ontario. And each week I bring you a story that takes about 5 minutes for you to watch. And each story is written by different authors from different books. Some of them are sad, some of them give you something to think about, and some of them are really, really funny. This story today will give you something to think about. It's called The Two Saddest Words, and it's written by Amy Noor, who is an author of this book called Chicken Soup for the Soul. Two of the saddest words in the English language are "if only." I live my life with the goal of never having to say those words because they convey regret, lost opportunities, mistakes, and disappointment. And sometimes the words "if only" go with terrible tragedies. Think about how many times you've heard about something awful happening, accompanied by, "if only he had called her back to make sure she was okay," or "if only I had investigated that noise," or "if only they had made sure the gate to the pool clicked behind them." My father-in-law is famous in our family for saying, "Take the extra minute to do it right." He must be doing something right since he's 91 years old and still making a lot of sense. I always try to live by the extra minute rule. Sometimes it only takes seconds to make sure I write something down correctly, or check something on the internet, or move an object out of the way before it trips someone. And of course, when my children were young and prone to all kinds of mishaps, I lived and breathed the extra minute rule. I always thought about what I would do to avoid an if-only moment, whether it was something minor like moving a cup full of hot coffee away from the edge of the counter, or something that required a little more work, such as taping padding on the sharp corners of a glass coffee table. I just read a news story about a student pilot who was thrown from an airplane when its canopy lifted off. The instructor who was belted in was fine. The student, whose seatbelt was not fastened, fell from the sky and his body was found on the ground somewhere in Tennessee. Imagine how many people are in mourning and how terrified that man must have been as he fell from the plane and realized he was going to die. Imagine the chorus of "if only" coming from his family. If only he had been wearing his seatbelt. How simple would that have been? I don't personally move my car 1 inch until I hear the seatbelt click on every passenger. I unplug the iron when I leave the laundry room for just a minute. I hate to get distracted not to return to the laundry room and then would start a fire about that forgotten iron. Imagine if the only one I was saying then, after I realized that I could not be trusted with a tea kettle, I left it boiling on the stove for an hour. I threw it out and bought an electric kettle. When my teenage son was first driving, I worried that enforcing his curfew too strictly would cause him to speed and have an accident. A boy in the next town was killed when he drove too fast trying to make it home by midnight. So my son and I agreed on a plan. If he missed curfew, he would just lose double those minutes the next night out. 10 minutes late meant 20 minutes shaved off the curfew. Consequences that were not so onerous that they would cause him to rush home. When I was in a car accident a few years ago, resulting in spinal surgery and a permanent nerve damage, I handled it well emotionally because I wasn't the driver who was at fault. There was no "if only" thinking for me, and it's a lot easier to forgive someone else than it is to forgive yourself. I don't only avoid those "if only" moments when it comes to safety, it's equally important to avoid "if only" in your personal relationships. We all know people who lost a loved one and bemoaned the fact that they had forgone an opportunity to say "I love you" or "I forgive you." When my husband's beloved elderly uncle, pocket dialed me several times yesterday with his new cell phone, I urged my husband to call him back, invoking the if only possibility. My husband called him and was glad that he did. Now, if anything happens, my husband won't have to say, if only I had called him back that day. I know there will still be occasions when I have to say if only about something, but my life is definitely more serene because of my policy of doing everything possible to avoid that eventuality. And even though it takes an extra minute to do something right, or it occasionally takes an hour or two in my busy schedule to make a personal connection, I know that I'm doing the right thing. I'm buying myself peace of mind, and that's the best kind of insurance for my emotional well-being. Well, what a great story. And how many times have we said, if only? Oh my goodness. In our nursing school, one of our classmates who was a year behind us was rushing home from a dance one night with a very good friend of mine, actually, and they were both killed in an accident because they were rushing home to hit the curfew that is set by the residents at nursing school. So I really appreciate this story from Amy Newark, and I'll be doing a 5-minute story each Wednesday, sending it out to you, and they'll be from different authors. And thanks so much for taking 5 and blessings on your day.